seeing is, wow. I know I had the message shame, but it's like, wow, we have really gotten to the point of lawlessness. The Bible talks about we were going to get to a state of lawlessness. And it's funny because you don't hear the media talking about that. In fact, the Bible prophesied that we would get into a state of loneliness, of lawlessness. And we have. The things that I've seen, how people decide that they want to act in other people's businesses, on airplanes, on the ships. I mean, it has gotten crazy. In other people's businesses, I know we've heard for a while there were people that was going around just running into the stores and stealing and acting like that's just the thing to do. And whether you are brazen with your stealing or you're trying to be secretive with your stealing, it's still lawlessness. And the message that God gave me is to talk about the fact that we are now in a lawless state. And I would love for everyone, and I'm saying it, everyone, to tag and share others in this message. People, the way I see things going is we don't like to hear the truth, but in this case, this is really one of those things that's going to help us because we're losing our children, we're losing our family members, we're losing our loved ones, because loved ones could be somebody else, but I'm just saying we're losing all of this. Why? Because we refuse to accept what is true. We're also part of the message is the sins of omission. We don't want to do what is right. We don't. Or we see what's right and we choose not to say or do anything about it. Why? Because it really didn't affect my garden, my world, my home type of mentality. But that's not how things should be according to God. And even if you don't believe in God, this is still something. If you just want a better world, a better community, a better society, this is still a message that would do you some good. You don't have to believe in God to want to be at least better than how we are right now. Again, you'll hear me so stress it. How in the world is Jesus a bad thing when he talks about living a good life? I don't like the way my chain is. But for us to live a good life, to be loving and caring to one another, right? How is that a bad thing? Why is there so much resistance to the fact that God just wants us to be better people? And the world would fight so hard against Jesus. Well, the only way you will fight against somebody wanting to be good is if you're bad. And if Jesus truly exists, then that means the enemy truly exists. And if the enemy definitely can influence others to do things, just like God can influence us to do things and the angels can influence us to do things, don't you think then that there must be someone else out there working to say, hey, let's keep this society, this community, or this world bad? Yes. So what we need to do is stop looking at it just to be from even the biblical point for this time, right? I'm just saying this right here, and just look at it. What is wrong with wanting to have a good and safe community? What is wrong with wanting to have a good and safe city, a good and safe state, a good and safe country? What is wrong with that? And if you're saying, well, you're a Christian minister and I don't want to hear a Christian word, what about the word of just wanting something to be better? How about feeling safe when I walk outside? How about the fact that my neighbor, if they see me in need, they will reach out and help me? You don't want that to be a part of your life either? Because if that is the case, then what we're saying is I am a part of, I'm talking about sharing. I want sharing and tagging. That's what I'm asking for this morning. Sharing and tagging. I want others. I don't want that in my life, so you must be a part of the other side. The side that want evil. The side that just want to wreck society and just to see the chaos that's going on with us right now. I really would love to share my own sermon, but I'm really caught up in wanting to just speak because I started off speaking, and that's what I would love to do. But anyway, the sermon is called When Silence Speak. This is actually a 3-part series, and I pray to the Lord I'm able to get past part 1 today. If not, out, I will have to do a continuation to part one before I start part two. The hidden dangers of lawlessness and neglect. And the thing that I look at, in all honesty, in this is, I'm sorry, y'all, I'm a little bit off. Is the stuff, like I said, that I've seen. I've seen way, way too much foolishness that's going on in the world. And in this, I'm talking. I show my wife, and we'll talk about the things that I see. And what I'm on is the rules and structures. And what I'm saying is, we have hopefully been raised in a home that gave you some kind of discipline and structure. And if we were not raised in a home that provided discipline and structure, the world is definitely going to give you some discipline and structure. And what I mean by that is, you're going to become a part of a society in which you're not going to like it. And that's, I'm talking about going to prison. Because if you break the rules of society, they're going to do what? They're going to send you to prison. And you're going to be in there wishing you never did the things that got you there. Or maybe you could be, again, part of that bad part, and you say, no, I'm going to continue this because I want to be evil and I want to be wicked. And don't get mad as I say this, because there are some out there that just want to be evil and wicked. And it's a shame, because there are a lot of us that don't want to be a part of a wicked, evil society. And in this series, I'm sorry, I had to copy and paste something. But in this series, the things that I'm looking at, the things that I want people to see prayerfully, that you will get out of this for your own life, is the fact that, what am I doing to perpetuate either side, right? Am I doing the things that needs to be done to make for a better society, my own community, my own garden? Am I doing the things that are needed to make this a better place for us? I'm talking about those in your own world, right? Or am I doing the things that help keep chaos and lawlessness going on in the world? And it starts at home. It really does start at home. I want to stick with my message, though. Uh, sorry, I apologize. I definitely, I keep looking for what I. What I know I have, and then I keep going back, seeing like I'm not seeing it when I paste it, so I can preach from my notes. I can't hear you. All right, now I just had to double check, because, like I said, this is driving me crazy for me not to see what it is I'm looking for, to preach my sermon from. But anyway, let me redo this. Start over with my. So I had the free time, and I've been looking at social media. I think it's mostly Instagram, and I've just seen a ton, and I do mean a ton, of videos where people have just refused to obey law enforcement. And when I say this, they're sitting up there getting pulled over for a traffic violation. And I understand, we've had some bad run-ins with the cops, but it's just not people of one race. I'm gonna put it like that. It's been people, period, of how they interact with the law. And this is not about me talking about one side or the other in the case of the law enforcement thing is, but it's to understand that when we live in a society, and I'm talking about outside of your home, the purpose of law, why we have a law in place. And if in your home you wanted to have some kind of structure, or matter of fact, you have laws in your home, and whether they're laws that you don't care about or laws that you enforce. Why? Because you also want there to be some kind of discipline structure or even some kind of peace in your home so that things can run efficiently, is the word I'm going to use. And if we get out there and we violate the law, right? Or let me back up a little bit. We say we live in a free country. United States is a free country. So let me start there. United States is a free country, right? But what does that freedom truly mean here in the United States? Does that freedom mean I have a right to do whatever I feel like I want to do and nothing should happen to me? That's a question you should ask yourself. That's why I said we need to tag folks. We need to share this message because people need to understand this. Does it mean I can do whatever I want because I live in a free country? That the laws that the country gives to govern us, and the purpose of the law is to protect everyone's freedom. I can do whatever I want. Well, if you ever stop to think about that, I can do whatever I want, you know then that you're actually going to violate somebody else's freedom. Because when you say I can do whatever I want, if you decide you want to kill someone, you have a right to kill them. If you decide you want to steal something, you have a right to steal. But guess what though? When you do that, you have now inflicted something on someone else. Your right to do something doesn't mean you have a right to violate someone else's right. That's what I'm talking about with freedom. See, that's why we have to have a governance and standards, because you don't have a right to inflict your right on someone else. That's not how this works. So when you step outside and you're looking to do something, you are now in an environment that have other people. See, one of the things I be telling my wife, and I'm on one end I'm serious, on the other end I'm joking, is when a person cuts me off, and I tell my wife, I say, you know what I would want to say to him, this is not the way to meet me, right? What I'm saying is, you cutting me off, basically almost causing an accident, is not the way to meet me. You can meet me in a much more pleasant way. Wave, smile, introduce yourself. That's a great way to meet me. But to cut me off, to get ugly with me, no, that's not a great way to meet me. Now, you're going to meet me, but it's not the right way to meet me. See, this is what I mean by when you start to infringe on someone else's right. You go to the store. You own the store. Come on, y'all. You own the store. And you own the store. Why? Because you're trying to provide a service to the community. You say, we don't have a store in the community. The closest store is some 20 miles away. So I put this business here so I can help my community and also, of course, take care of my family. But the people come in and they say, you know what? I don't feel like paying you today. I'm going to take this because we're hungry. I don't have a job. I'm going to pull out my gun because I know in my mind you're not going to freely give it to me. So I'm going to forcefully take it. I have a right to do this. Why? Because I'm hungry and I don't have a job and I need something to eat. Well, there is no freedom that allows you to do that. None. There is no freedom that allows you to do that. Because the purpose of the freedom is to give you a right to not be harassed, to make sure that you can enjoy some semblance of a good life, but not to infringe on someone else. As I was doing my message this morning, or last night, yesterday, or the message part of it done, but I always polish it up just before because I let the week go. So anyway, the thing that I was on was the saying came up, you have a right to swing your fist until it meets my nose. So as long as you swing it and you don't touch me, you had a right to do it. But the minute you touch me, and I don't mean just physically, you have now infringed on my rights. And that's what I'm talking about with this lawlessness, right? I've seen so many, and I'm oh gosh, I can't even get to how much it has just really blown my mind. It's so much. One of the stories, illustrations that I have about this sinful way that we live, lawlessness and the sins of omission. And let me give you what the sins of omission is. It is when you know to do right, but you don't. So what I'm saying, and this affects our society right now here today, you see some injustice going on, whether it's somebody stealing, killing, or doing illegal activities, whether it's in your neighborhood, the local stores, whatever, and you say nothing about it. You refuse to open your mouth about it. The Bible tells us in the book of Ezekiel, the 33rd chapter, that when the watchman sees the enemy coming, this is my paraphrasing, but he's supposed to blow the trumpet. The trumpet is to warn the people. If the watchman doesn't blow the trumpet, God is going to hold the watchman accountable for that blood. That's like I said, that's me paraphrasing. Okay? Ezekiel 33. We have a lot of watchmen who don't blow the trumpet. They won't say anything. It's unpopular for me to voice my opinion. I have hatred in my heart. Because we are pastors, don't mean we don't have racial bias in us. That's not true. Why? Because we're human. And we were raised in a certain environment that shaped the way that we view things. This is true. This is so true. That's why I'm saying everybody needs to hear this. We have racial bias. And we get to a point where we refuse to help others. Some of us are so wrapped up in just our pockets. We just want to get numbers. We just want to get more money. We just want to get more members. We want to have a big edifice, a great big house. But that's not helping God's people. That's just fattening your own pocket. Now, I'm not saying that you can't have a nice home. I'm not saying you can't have a nice car. I'm definitely not saying you can't take no trips. But when you do it and exploit the people at doing it, it's wrong. If we don't say anything about it, it's wrong. If you see someone being jumped for no reason, police ask you a question, I didn't see anything. It is a sin of omission. God will hold you accountable for that sin. That same person that jumped that person, that robbed that person, that murdered that person is still free to run the street. And what are you then saying? I'm talking to Christian folks big time. What are you then saying? It's okay for evil to run rapid in the neighborhood. For those that are not Christian that's listening to this message, are you saying again, it's okay for evil to run rapid in our neighborhoods? But yet then I can get on social media. Oh, I'm going to get elevated. This is bothering me. It's okay to get on social media and then complain how people are. But if you would have just opened your mouth to get that person off the streets, maybe the society wouldn't be that bad. But see, the devil has a way of making us feel ashamed or guilty for telling the truth. In one of my messages, the 10 marks of the false prophet or false teacher, I used the story of the emperor's new clothes. And in that story, the swindlers, as they called them in the story, made sure that they set the narrative of how you can view the emperor's new clothes. And what they said was, if you could not see these invisible clothing, you were unworthy, or you were stupid. That was the word that he used. You were stupid and unworthy for your job or your post. Well, right then and there, king's men didn't want to feel stupid nor unworthy. So they lied to sit there and say that they saw clothing that wasn't there. They perpetuated the swindler's job for him. The swindlers didn't have to continue to con people to believe that the clothing was not there. No, because they set that narrative. Snitches get stitches. Rat, fink, and all those other things is setting a narrative for us to commit the sin of omission. Because we don't want to feel like a rat. We don't want to feel like a fink or a snitch or get stitches or the fear that they're going to retaliate against us, right? So we don't do it. But we are still perpetuating and committing the sin, and we're perpetuating the evil that's going on out in the world because we refuse to say something. But God has told us that if we know to do right, then we must do right. That's me paraphrasing. That's me paraphrasing. But we sit there and say, God has told us if we know to do right that we must do right, but yet we won't do right, then who are we really following? See, that's what you got to think about. As we allow the world to fall into this lawlessness with our own sins of omission, we are now perpetuating who? The enemy's agenda. See, because we are allowing them to continue to run free as they shut down our belief system because of the fact that they know they are defeated. I'm talking about the enemy. He knows he's defeated. But his job now is to take as many with him that I'm going to say is willing to go. See, you are willing to go when you violate what God has put as a standard or command for us. Like I said, you don't have to believe him. You don't have to believe in God. But God's standard should still be an agenda you should want. Why? Because God's standard is talking about loving one another, caring for one another, humbling yourself, not to put yourself more than what you really are, sharing, forgiving. What is wrong with that? Huh? When we're in the world and we talk about things, we want forgiveness. That's why when we commit a crime, we want them to forgive us for the sins that we committed. But God is the ultimate forgiver. We don't want to believe it, but we still want it, right? God says, just think about it. You said earlier, the analogy that I used, I talked about the person robbing somebody because they said they were hungry. But now think if you were following God's standard and God's agenda, or our pluggers, God's way, right? Just think if we were doing this God's way. First of all, you wouldn't have been hungry. Why? Because your community, your neighbors, would have sit there and saw the fact that you were in need, and they would have reached out and helped you. They wouldn't have had to fear the fact that you were trying to con them because you were faithful to God. And they know that you were doing everything you could to provide, but you were just, as we like to say, behind the eight ball. You know, things just weren't going your way. And they would have no problems helping you. So there would be no need to steal. But because we are not doing that, like I said, I'm trying to find out what's wrong with that. What is wrong with wanting to help one another? What is wrong with wanting to love one another? What is wrong with wanting to care for one another? See, St. Jude should not be the only place that we care about, or even the other, the Shriner one. They should not be the only places that we care about, right? And I know I'm not saying everyone, because I know there's people out there that truly go out of their way to help their neighbors. They truly got that love of Christ in them. But we got way more folks who don't, right? Folks who sit there and so filled with anger and hate that when I look at these videos that I mentioned earlier, when I go to the comments, I like to go to the comments and see what people are saying, what they're feeling. And there's always someone who wants to bring up racism. I don't care which side of the street. It's always somebody who brings up race. And I laughed to myself. I said, because what they're trying to do is get the focus off the real problem and keep the division going. Well, if they're trying to keep the division going, they can be only on one side, and that's the side of the enemy. Because God doesn't want us to be divided. God wants us to be united. God created all people. All people are God's children. Now, some of us act worse than others, but that doesn't mean that we stop trying to love them and care for them and pray for them and try to help them get better. to that parable where Jesus talked about the Good Samaritan. See, it was church people who turned their backs on the person that was beat up, the Samaritan that was beat up, or the man that was beat up on the road. I think he was actually a church person himself. Matter of fact, he was. And it was church people that turned their backs on him. But it was the Samaritan, the one that was his enemy, the ones they didn't get along with, was the one who reached out and helped. So when I'm talking about this, you need to stop and look at your own self and ask yourself, what part am I playing in this lawless society that we have developed now? What part am I playing? See, I'm going to go back and I'm going to hurt some feelings, and it may be mine too. How did I raise my children? See, because that's a question. How did I raise my children? Did I raise my children to respect authority? Did I raise my children to respect others? Did I raise my children to be accountable for the things that they do? What do I mean by that? In my house, growing up, I'm talking about my parents, we had chores to do. Oh, it wasn't no options. It was our responsibility to make up our beds. As the boys, we took out the trash and did other little things. As my sisters, my mother made them wash the dishes. They had to, of course, make up their own bed and cleaned up and vacuumed. We all vacuumed and, did stuff like that around the house. If you didn't do it, no, everything wasn't a whooping in my mother's house. I keep saying, I told my mother, I always say that. But in our parents' house, it wasn't always a whooping, but you definitely got disciplined for it, right? Things were taken away from you, and you understood. You grew up understanding that there are consequences for the decisions that we make, right? If we choose not to do what we are instructed to do by an authority figure, there's going to be consequences for these decisions. And what I look at when I see these videos is straight childish behavior. I'm talking about from older folks to the younger folks. Straight childish behavior. Don't touch me, even though I violated the law, right? I know my rights. What rights? Honestly, that was puzzling me. What rights? What rights are you saying you know that you have? You can't even cite what rights you're talking about. You just keep saying, I know my rights. My rights not to be arrested for stealing. My rights to sit there and be resisting to the law enforcement for trying to do their job, if that's what they're doing, right? No. The fact that I heard something and it sounds good, and so I'm going to repeat it every time I come in contact with the police, even though I'm a criminal. I'm not saying all of them. I'm talking about the ones that actually have violated or had a warrant out for their arrest, and instead of them cooperating, they resisted. If you're a criminal, you already did something wrong. What's the point of resisting? I guess you just say you want to add some more charges to your thing to look even like a bad criminal. I don't know. But anyway, I'm saying this because if you knew your rights state that you can invoke not to speak. Yes, you can say that. You can ask them not to search your vehicle. But if they all of a sudden develop probable cause, I mean, honestly, this is the law of the land. They do have a right to search your vehicle. But if you can prove that it is false, you sue them. You sue them. But you resisting and you yelling and screaming, these are videos I've been watching, you yelling and screaming, you are not even inconveniencing others, because the folks that I saw also resisting and acting foolish were on airplanes also. People trying to get to where they're trying to go to. The person has something wrong and they refuse to cooperate. So let me give you some I know my law stuff real quick. I know my rights. When you're in the air or on an airplane, the rights that you think you have when you're not on an airplane don't exist. The airplane, the airline has the right to kick you off an airplane for any reason. Any. Whether you did anything or not. You can complain, you can sue, you can do everything else you want to. But they have a right to kick you off the airplane. You must understand that. So you fighting and everything else is not going to change that. That's where the suing part comes in. That's where you get them for violating your rights. But you trying to hold everybody else up because you think you have a right to be on that airplane, you're sadly mistaken. You don't. They can kick you off. The same thing with a ship. When you are on the ship, the captain is the law. Again, if you feel like they're violating your rights, that's why we have court systems. It may not always work in our favor, but we have them. But you are fighting and resisting is not going to change the fact that the captain has the right to enforce the maritime law that it was given to him, the authority that was given to him. And when we sit there and think that we're going to yell and scream and argue and fuss and fight is going to change that, it's not. It's not. It's not. And why am I saying this, Pastor Robert? Because I'm trying to give you some truth, right? I'm trying to help you. See, as I say when we close our messages sometimes, I love you more than you love yourself because I want you to be saved. I do. I do. I really do. See, I don't want you to have to get beat up. I don't want you getting shot. I don't want you to even be incarcerated. So you have to understand how things really work. But if you choose to not, and I was talking about how we raise our children, not obey authority, not obey the laws of the land, guess what you're doing? You are now adding to the lawlessness of your community. You are. If you feel you have a right to be under the legal age to purchase anything, from alcohol, tobacco, guns, any of that stuff that you have to be of legal age to get, and you go do it, you have now violated the law. You are lawless. Well, that person got a gun, but I was asked a question: how do we change society for the better? And my answer, my response to that is plain and simple. Work on yourself. See, if we were to align our mindsets with God, everybody, and hear me, everybody align their mindset with God's standard. Everybody obeyed what God says to do in loving one another, caring for one another, respecting one another, faithfulness, all of those things. Where is there then any cause to truly own a gun? To have any kind of weapon whatsoever? If everybody, please, y'all know this hypothetical thing, but anyway, if everybody had that mindset, where would there be a need for the guns? Where would there really be a need for the prisons? There wouldn't be, right? Because everybody is doing what God has called them to do, which is live a good life. But because we do have that other side, right? We do have to protect ourselves. I'm not against that. But it doesn't give you the right to say, I'm out here acting like I'm bad, false courage, because I have a weapon, and I'm going to be arrogant and start mess with other people, try to intimidate folks because I know I have a weapon. It doesn't give you the right to do that, but we do. And if you walk down a street, you got on the wrong colors, you don't look like you belong in this neighborhood, you get harassed, whatever, because we have hatred that's dominating our mindsets and our hearts. Hatred, right? And we sit there and thinking, feeling that we're right in what we're doing when we're so wrong. And in some of these cases, these folks are called so-called Christians that will go out of their way to harass a person because they have passed judgment on them by how they look. I don't care what the color of the skin. It's not just a skin color thing like that. It's so many different things. You could be dressed a certain way, and people will say, you don't look like you belong here. Like I said, when I get up here to preach every Saturday, every Sunday, my mind is on all these other days, but on Sundays, when I get up here to preach, I don't dress in a suit. I don't know. I just think that's more ritualistic than anything else. And I like to be comfortable. And every time, especially when you're out here in the South and it's hot, a suit just doesn't always satisfy me being comfortable. And I know back in Cali, especially where I came from, even through the summertime, you can get some cold weather because the fog comes in. Wearing a suit then is no problem for me. I can keep it warm. But they would look at me and say, I don't know how he's a pastor. He's not wearing a suit. Really? That what makes me a pastor to wear a suit? Businessmen wear suits. Con men wear suits. Does that make them righteous pastor type people? No. It's not the clothes that I wear. Jesus didn't even wear the garments of the priests or the religious people, leaders of the time. He didn't wear those. He wore common clothes. But yet outside. I was talking to my mother about these videos that I've been watching. And I said, Mama, I said, ooh, the last thing I would ever want is for you to see me acting like some of these folks I've seen in these videos. I said, you probably come to the jail and whoop my butt. Even at this stage in life, she would come to jail and whoop my butt for being such an embarrassment to her, because that's not the way she or her and my father raised me at all. She raised us to be respectful to everyone. Never messing with people that didn't mess with you. Don't start any problems. If you're going to start anything, you start by showing yourself to be friendly. Stay to yourself, mind your business, right? Type of thing. You don't go around jumping at other folks. Now, if you know me, really know me, you know there's certain things I just can't, in my life, in good conscience, allow to happen in front of me. And one, I can't allow, in good conscience, for a guy to jump on a woman physically in the street. Now, if he's arguing, y'all arguing back and forth, I would definitely try to stay out of it. But if I see you physically grabbing and touching her, I will actually get up to say something or try to intervene. Why? Because that's not the way we act in the street. And you can get mad at me and you want to kill me because the anger is raging through your body. But see, what I'm trying to do right now is save you. It's what I'm trying to do. Because everybody in the street now got cameras on their phones. And they film everything they can see, especially if they know can help them get a lot of views. And they're going to pull it out. And no matter what's going to happen, you're going to end up going to jail now. Right? But see, I'm trying to save you from all of that happening. You know, separate, calm down, take a deep breath. Right? I know you're mad. Trust me, because I've gotten angry. I've been enraged. Right? We don't want to listen to calm advice, but you got to separate. You got to take that deep breath. That's why, like I said earlier, I love you more than you love yourself, because I want you to be safe. Don't, and the fact that they may be back with you after all this nonsense mess is over with, that's their choice, because God doesn't force us. God doesn't force us. Now, I don't have my notes in front of me, for one thing, but I did pray for God to give me what He wanted me to say. And when I brought up lawlessness, it is a relational word, right? What I'm saying is, we have a relationship with God. This relationship is how we obey His commands. One of the pastors say, of course, if you love me, you will keep my commandments, right? And if we love, that means we have some kind of relationship, some kind of feeling, right, with that, whatever it is that we're talking about. In this case, we're talking about God. When we decide to break them, we no longer have that relationship. What we have is this belief that our way is better. I believe in God. I go to church, but my way is still better. Now, I'm not talking about the doctrine that's being preached at your ministry. I'm talking about God's word. Because if you say you believe in God, you should have a Bible. And there is no way you can tell me in today's society you cannot have a Bible. Because now Bibles are free on that one little device that we can't live without anymore, the telephone. That little cell phone we got, you can download yourself a Bible. And when you download some of these Bibles, they will actually give you reminders. They will give you daily devotionals. They will give you a reading plan that can help you develop and build your relationship with God. But we're so programmed to not want to do that. But we cry about how society is. See, because in order to make this change, like I said, I was asked earlier, how do we change the way the world is? I said we have to start with ourselves, right? You have to actually get in that mirror, and sometimes you may not like what you see. Matter of fact, I'll probably say majority of the times you're probably not liking what you see. And you ask to change. Like I said, you have to do some self-evaluations. You have to ask yourself, am I a part of the problem? Did I do everything I could to make this better? Or did I sit there and figure that hanging out was just so much more fun? Not being accountable for the things that I've done in this world. What I'm talking about, even raising, having children. I don't know how many people have been told about as we used to say back in the day, or they said back in the day, the birds and the bees. I really feel a lot of people found out through their friends in the street, right? You go find somebody and y'all get together and boom, 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 and then boom. Now you can talk about you're not being virgins on either side. We actually watched a crazy movie about the person was going around killing virgins, as a matter of fact, in the movie. But anyway, they they learned it that way, and maybe the parents didn't even know it about the true birds and the bees, right? The fact that God had said this is something that we do once we are married, right? And the purpose of it was to reproduce. That was the purpose of having these relationships, sexual relationships. Gotta say it, right? Is to reproduce. But when I listen to some people speak, it's, well, we had sex and she got pregnant. We had sex and she got pregnant. So she went out, like she went to the store or she took a pill or whatever, something, and it made her pregnant, right? The actual act had nothing to do with it. It was just the fact that she decided she wanted to get pregnant. No, it's the act. See, it takes two different organisms, in a sense, to make a person pregnant, a woman pregnant, I should say. One comes from the man, and the other comes from the woman. Biology. The man has the sperm, the woman has the egg. When they meet and they break the egg open, or the guy get in there, make that little sperm, break the egg, she's going to get pregnant. I told gentlemen, guys, before, why do you think the act is over after you finish? Because the whole purpose was to put that stuff in her to make her pregnant. Like, again, I'm going to say it. If you were not told this, you have just been told. That's why I'm stressing so much about us tagging and sharing this message specifically. Because there are a lot of things I think people just were not educated on. And they go out and they do it, right? And then they don't understand the whole purpose of the act. And then with the sins of omission, because I want to definitely hammer that home too before I leave off today. Again, the sins of omission is to know to do right but don't do right. God holds that as a sin. When we experience so much hatred, racism, and oppression, and there is no one fighting for us on the other side, those are sins of omission. I'm not just saying it from the side. When we're in our communities and we see crime being committed and evil being done, and we don't cooperate to get it off the streets, we are committing sins of omission. We catch people stealing. I'm not a fink, I'm not a snitch, I'm not going to tell. But if you're asked and you act like you didn't see anything, or you're not trying to stop it, see, it's a sin of omission. When somebody is stealing something, right? Now, I know we got greed going on in the world. I'm not putting this all 100% on people stealing. It's greed. Plays a part of it in this too. But it really does cause prices to go up, right? Because when you start a business, you have a profit margin that you're trying to obtain. And that's why you set prices the way you set them. Now, if you have 100 whatever items and somebody stole 10% of them, right? That's 10 items that they stole. That's cutting into your profit margin. You can't catch the thief because you don't know who's doing it. And every time you buy 100 items, 10 of them come up missing. Well, what else you got to do to reach that profit margin? You're going to have to raise the prices because you're still trying to reach that profit margin. You got to pay your employees. You got to pay your bills. You still got to have money for yourself, right? And you still got to invest back into the business. So you're going to raise those prices. People get mad because you're raising the prices. But someone in that group of people know or is the one that's stealing. And someone knows that they're doing the stealing. But they're not going to say anything. Now, you go out of business, right? Because you just can't keep on losing the items. And now you go out of business. Well, now this person, because they have been allowed to steal, it's not going to stop. He's going to, I should say they're going to continue looking for something to steal. Well, guess who comes along? You. You're not the one stealing, but you know who's doing it. You come along. Got a great job, gave you a promotion at your job, got you a little bit more money, And you say, you know what, I've been always wanting to get whatever item it is. And you go buy it. You come home one day, somebody done broke in your house and stole it. Oh, you are livid. Your heart is hurting because somebody done stole from you. But you said nothing when it was stealing from someone else. You know the term, the chickens come home to roost, right? That's what that is. Because I'm not going to stop it because it didn't happen to me. But now I want it to stop because it's happening to me. Oh, that's the society we're in right now. That's the lawlessness. That's parts of sins of omission. Because when injustice and wrongdoings has been done to others, we won't say anything. Matter of fact, we're probably even perpetuating or praying that they get them all. But it doesn't work that way. Hate, y'all don't hear me say this a lot, but I say it a lot off of the sermons. Hate has to hate. It does. Hate has to hate. If there's nothing to hate, it will find something to hate. The reason why I know this, and this is my message, the reason why I know this is because in a society of all, we're going to say, one color of skin of people, they will still find prejudice and racism there. They will find a reason to hate. If you don't believe me, just Google it. Or whatever, however you're doing your research, do it. And find out in societies or communities or worlds where there's only one skin color of a person, they still have racism there. It'll be hair color, hair, facial features, nose. They'll find something to hate. Why? Because hate has to hate. But instead of hating, what's wrong with loving? Why are you worried that God made this one short, this one tall, this one thin, this one big? Why is that a problem? Why do I have to look like you? God made this one smart, that one dumb. I shouldn't say it like that, but I'm just saying they don't have the same talents that one other person has, right? And that's where problems come in, hatred. Because someone experienced how someone else did. Somebody's guilty in their own mindset about how they did someone, and they want you not to ever know the truth, so they keep division going on. That's hatred. That's hatred. And in all honesty, the fact that people don't want the idea of slavery, I don't care what slavery we're talking about, was done because it makes them look bad, that's not going to help you. It's not. Because that's a sin of omission. If you're fighting not to tell the truth is a sin of omission, that's not going to help you. And Christian folks are part of this that don't want the truth of slavery to be told because it hurts to know that we could be that evil as a race or people, period, to want to enslave folks and treat them like we treated them. You heard me say we. I wasn't a slave owner, but I'm saying we as humans could do that to one another. So, in this sermon, I couldn't find my notes that I truly spent time doing, the first part. I was talking about lawlessness. I have been talking about lawlessness. And I'm going to give a few examples. I want to take it to an hour, and I'm looking at my time, and then I'm going to cut it off. But I want to talk about some of the stuff that I was seeing. Okay? 2 young ladies got caught for shoplifting. They went into a store, and they were stealing items out the store. They came out the store and were greeted by the police. One of the young ladies became very loud, very argumentative, combative almost, to the point of telling the police, you're not going to touch me, I'm not going to show you my ID, I know my rights, right? But you were seen in the store shoplifting. That's one of the things that just blew my mind. If and you know that you were stealing, why are you being this combative? Why are you being this? Because you got caught and now you embarrassed that you caught, right? But they were. And then after the police identified them and was talking to them and trying to investigate what's going on, because in all honesty, even though I don't like to be accused, lie on me and my attitude changes major. If you lie on me or even try to act like you try to know me and say this is what I done and I know I didn't do it, my whole attitude changed. I'm not going to lie. I'm being honest. My whole attitude changed because I don't lie. I really tell people I don't lie. I really strive so 100. My daddy whooped me, and I told myself after that last whooping he told me about lying, I said I practiced not to lie. If I did it, I did it. So, but to say that I did something and I didn't, yes, it makes my attitude change. That's why I said that. But I had to clear this up. Anyway, but they were arguing. And so the police had to arrest the young lady, and she fighting. And then the words came out, she's a minor. She's a minor. She's a minor. And in my mind, I'm trying to figure out, okay, so what's the point? Where did the law say that a minor cannot be arrested for committing a crime? Where did the law says that a minor should not, or the police can't accost a minor to arrest them? I really like to see that law. I looked it up. I didn't see it, but I want to know, where is that law at? So, because what you're saying is a minor can go in the store, shoot, kill, rob, whatever they want to do, come out, and the police is supposed to do nothing to them. I want you to hear how crazy that sounds. That a minor can go into some place, shoot, kill, or steal, and come out, and nothing happens to them. Because the police, there's a law saying the police can't touch them. Well, that adds to lawlessness. And then maybe that's the reason why a lot of these young folks were going into the stores and just stealing stuff and running out the store with all these items, right? Maybe that's what that is. But what that has done is brought us to this lawlessness that we're living in right now. Lawlessness means you don't obey the law. That's just the bottom line to it. That's what it is. I'm not obeying the law. It's lawlessness. I can do what I want to. It's lawlessness. If that's your mindset, then you are a lawless person. I know the truth hurts. I can be an ugly person. I can be a fat person. I don't care. It's what it is. And if I'm a lawless person, I'm a lawless person. Robert, you judge me. I'm not judging you. I'm telling you, if that's what you do, then that's what you are. Okay? Because we are what we do. If I say that I'm a man of God, but yet I'm out here cussing and committing it because I'm married, doing adulterous behavior, stealing from folks, but I say I'm a man of God. I'm not a man of God. I'm a crooked sinner, crooked pastor. That's what I am. Don't judge me. No, it's what you are. The things you're doing is what you are. See, we need to hear the truth. And the truth is, we are jacked up. No, I didn't want to cuss. We are jacked up. We need some help. I'm talking about all of us. I ain't talking about just no one race. We need some help. Because the first thing we do when we get upset with someone of a different race is we call them a derogatory name. Because we want to hurt them. Because we're mad that they upset us. Or maybe they hurt us. And we want to call them that name. And some of us are Christians. So I'm asking, how is that following God's agenda? How is that following God's way? See, the world can be crazy because they're not following God. It's no excuse, but they're not following God. That's why in this beginning of this sermon, you kept hearing me say, what is wrong with living God's way? A life of love, respect, caring for one another in authority. What is wrong with that? Forgiveness. What is wrong with that life? Something has to be wrong with that life. Why? Because we're not living it. We rather have chaos than to have peace. You know why I know we rather have chaos? Because y'all not going to share. Not all y'all. I'm not saying not all y'all. You're not going to share this. So other folks can hear this. Yeah, I'm saying it because they need to hear it. They need to hear it. Some folks ain't even going to listen, right? Their minds are so made up that they're going to hate. The enemy has got them so hardened in their hearts that they're going to hate. Okay? But that don't mean you have to be that way. If you're sick and tired of how society is, you should be willing to share and to help others get better. Oh, I'm on this, y'all. I'm on this. We want people to be better than what we currently are right now. Respecting others. Everyone. Now, you younger folks that go out there thinking that you can demand respect at 15 years old, no, you deserve some respect, but you can't demand respect from someone older than you. They shouldn't go out there being disrespectful to you by no shape, form, or fashion. But you also must be respectful to your elders. Oh, yes, you do. They're not your parents. They don't need to be your parents. Because if they're caring enough to help you live or to not get killed out there in those streets, You should love them for the fact that they care that much about you. Not to be argumentative and fighting against the fact that they want you to see tomorrow. But we've been so hardened and programmed. Oh, it's all stuff that I'm going through. Hardened and programmed to fight against anyone that we say is not a part of our garden. That means church too. We fight against it. Even though they love us enough to say, I'm doing wrong. You say, well, you don't understand, I'm hungry. You don't know who's going to feed you. I feed people a lot when I have it and I'm out there and they come to me. I do. I feed you because I know how it is to be hungry as a child. And so if I know how it felt to be hungry as a child, that feeling never left me as an adult. And I know how it is to be hungry. I know how it is to sometimes feel like nobody care about you, right? But see, that's the problem. You have sheltered yourself so much, you don't even know what real love looks like anymore because we became so lawless, because we don't understand the truth of how life works in a civilized society. I don't know about you, but I don't live in a war zone. I don't live in a jungle. I don't live in what we call a crazy environment. Yeah, I may live in as what we call the neighborhood, the ghetto, as the term they gave it back when we were growing up. But we had some pride back then. People cared about how their house looked and their yards looked and helping us one another. Like in fact, I told the story about the lady that whooped me, and I just thought that my mama was gonna go out there and beat her up because she whooped me. She put her hands on me. But no, my mother went out there. She heard the story, and she whooped me. So I got 2 whoopings. Then I realized something, though. I can't act anywhere in the street. But we got so many folks that don't you touch my child. But your child's out there acting a fool. So let me help y'all with something. Let me help you with something. If you are refusing to get help for your child because we love them, when your child meets its fate and has to go see the maker, you're going to wonder why people have been a little bit insensitive to the matter. Because they were trying to help you. They were trying to save your child. But for whatever reason in your mind, you think the fact that they're trying to discipline your child, I don't mean physically, but talking to them, right? And trying to help them understand it's not how we act is wrong. Okay. See, there's going to be a consequence, and now you're going to have to suffer it. Because everybody out here doesn't dislike you or your child. Some of us really want your child to make it in life. We want them to be successful. I'm one of them. I am. I want everybody's child to be. I want you to be successful. But see, if you're holding on to some kind of hate and some kind of lawlessness and whatever you think it is, and you're not willing to learn how to really change how we're acting right now, then you don't want it. And you don't really love yourself. I love myself because I'm caring for myself. But see, that's not the love God wants us to have. God wants us to have the love that we love others and care for others. That's what I kept saying when I kept mentioning that. God wants us to care for others. He do. That's part of his commands with us. That's why we love our neighbors as we love ourselves. That's why we love our enemies, right? Because he wants us to care about them. And that's why we witness and we talk to people about the goodness of God. Jesus, I'm going to put it that way. Jesus. Why? Because we love you. We want you to find salvation. Not the material things comes and goes in life, but salvation is free and it's forever. So you had the greatest car in the world. It's going to break. You had the best crib or house in the world. It's going to deteriorate. You had some of the best designers this and designer that. It's going to fall apart. All of it is going to fade away. Salvation is never fading. Salvation is forever. That's what the word eternity means. Salvation is eternity. And we want you to get salvation. We also want you to enjoy the life that you're living right now here on earth. But as long as you decide that you are not going to abide by some rules or standards that are good, and I kept talking about God's, that's what I'm on, God's standards, we're going to have problems. Like I said, you don't have to believe in God to follow his standards. You know why I know that? Because some folks believe in street code, but they're not really street. Don't act like y'all haven't heard that before. Some people saying and perpetrated that they were so gangster street hard, they became millionaires, multimillionaires, and you bought it. You believed it. As a matter of fact, they got some of your loved ones locked up for following that nonsense. But if they loved y'all when they were doing this, they would have told you it wasn't true. Please don't do that because you're going to end up in jail or dead. But they didn't tell you that. They didn't love you like that. They loved the fact that they were getting money. Yes, I'm saying it. I'm saying it. And you say, Pastor, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm talking about rap music. I'm talking about any songs, any genre of songs, music that causes you to violate God's command. Because if they loved you, they would tell you, please don't do this. We're just doing this for the entertainment value. We're doing this to make some money. Because otherwise, you're going to spend eternity in the lake of fire. But they're not telling you that. They get your money. They still perpetuate that the lie that they're gangsters. And the crazy thing that I saw, and I got 3 minutes left, the craziness that I saw has been the fact that some of the younger ones heard that these guys were fake gangsters, and so now they're trying to live to be real gangsters and still rap. And guess what's happening to them? They're actually getting arrested, and they're actually going to jail. And then now what they're finding out is, so you can't live that lie. That's what that is. You can't live that lie. Even the gangsters back in the day couldn't live the lie that you can continue life as a gangster. Either you're going to get killed or they're going to finally catch up with you and arrest you and throw you in jail. But because it seems like a glamorous life, yeah, Sheila E. sang that song, Glamorous Life, right? That they make it seem so great. You know, like I said, I got 2 minutes. But one of my favorite movies being, of course, Star Wars. I love Empire Strikes Back because I love Darth Vader. And the dark side always made the Force look so much more powerful on their side than the Jedi. They did. They always made it look so much more powerful, right? The way Darth Vader used to choke you with just putting his hands up, and the way they made things fly at you just by just pointing at it. And the Force, the Jedi's never really did that. But the Jedi side was actually stronger than the dark side. But anyway, I love you all. I pray to God that something was gotten out of this message. We're living in a lawless society. No, you don't have a right to be disobedient to law if you violated a law. You don't have a right to be disobedient. Yes, in driving a car, if you get pulled over for a traffic violation, you must identify yourself to the law enforcement person when they ask you. This is a law. This is a national law. Yes, you must do it. Because it would go a lot smoother if you just go ahead and let them see who you are. Because all my interaction with police, I think I came across maybe 2 or 3 jerky police in my lifetime. But most of my interactions when I've done something wrong is I give them my license and my insurance and registration if that's what they ask for. And the incident goes smooth. There is no pulling the guns on me. There's no fighting. But when I was younger, I came across some jerky police, and I came across the jerky police as I was older. But most of them, they don't treat me like a criminal and act a fool with me because I cooperated. I did what I was supposed to do. Just wanting to be rebellious and you want to fight and tell them that they can't touch you when you stole something, when you're out there fighting, when you murdered somebody and all that stuff. No, you don't have a right to do all that stuff. And yes, they do have a right to put you because they got to get you behind the bars. You may not like what I'm saying, but it's the truth. And I'm educating you to it because I'm trying to prevent you from becoming an incident. An incident, what I'm saying is they beat you up. They shot you, right? I'm trying to help you not go there. If you did it, fess up to it. Be accountable for your actions. And you know how you can avoid this altogether? Don't do it. Don't do it. And you say, well, Pastor, I don't have the strength. Then that's where Jesus comes in. That's where the Holy Ghost comes in. That's why I'm saying, what is wrong with living the way God has called us to live? What is wrong with having his spirit in you to help you as things go? Now, it's not saying you can't override his spirit, but what's stopping us from getting it, right? To help us live better. I don't see anything wrong with that. I know you don't see it, Pastor, because you're not living in the world. Oh, I came from the world, though. That's the whole point about it. I know what's out there. I've been out there. It's gotten worse. That's what I'm talking about. How bad it has gotten, stemming from how we raised our children, to the fact that we give them no structure, no discipline, right? To the fact that we don't hold them accountable for the things that they do. Schools, everything that we got in here is not perfect, right? But what are we doing to help make it better? Do we go to the meetings when the school asks for meetings? Do we go check on our students and make sure they go into class, our kids, when they go to, are we doing any of those things? Or are we too busy trying to run the streets? Because if that's what we're doing, see, we're part of the problem too. If we want better, we must all do better. Don't talk about it. We must all do better. So what we're looking at is, Lord, bless me today to stop being part of the problem. Give me a heart and a mind that when I step out today, I will smile. I will show the love of Jesus to someone today. I will work hard to not be a vessel used by the enemy to perpetuate this lawlessness that's going on in our society today. If I see something wrong, I'm going to say something, because I cannot allow evil to continue to strive in my community. I don't want my neighbor to get killed. I don't want my child to get killed. I don't want this cycle of violence to continue in my neighborhood. I'd rather be a rat fink in stitches than to sit there and crying because my child got murdered because they were walking down the street and some nut that I saw do something else was shooting at somebody else and accidentally killed my child. We should not want that to continue happening. That's why the sins of omission is so important not to partake in. If I see racial injustice going on, I'm going to speak up. Now, I said I'm stopping, and I am. But racial injustice means that you're doing what is right and they're doing what is wrong. Racial injustice is not you acting a fool and they have to roughhouse you to get you to comply or whatever. That's not racial injustice. That's them doing the job. So anyway, that's it. That's all, as Pastor A loves to say. I love you all. We are praying tremendously for our country. I'm praying for our churches. We are praying for our churches, all the ministries. We want truth to be preached at the ministry. We want these harder messages that help people to live better for God to be preached in the ministries. We're praying for those that are sick and going through the illnesses in their bodies, the cancers, the MS, the diabetes, the hypertensions, any of those diseases that's got you on all these medications that's making life even worse for you. We're praying for those that have lost loved ones, the bereavement. We're praying that God will give you the comfort, the peace, and the strength and the healing that you need to continue to press forward. We're praying for those that are homeless, that are hungry, that need people to come into their lives to help them in the situations that they're in. We're praying that we can come to a mindset that will help us help them as God has blessed us so that we can be a blessing to them. You have a wonderful birthday for those that have birthdays this month. Pray for traveling mercies for all those that are traveling. Pray for a better understanding for those that are hardened in their hearts and refuse to open up to see what God is truly trying to get us all to see. Right? That's our prayer for today. Again, we love you. And as Pastor A, I saw in the notions quick, please share the message. Please share the message. Please share the message. Have a blessed Sunday and a blessed week. Pastor A will be back with her daily bread. And you have to reach out to me now about the men's prayer. Please do. DM me about the men's prayer for any brother who wants to be a part of the men's prayer, because once the enemy found